I stood at the top of the stairs, clutching my work bag as my trembling hands turned the brass knob to my own master bedroom. It was locked from the inside. Piled in the hallway like garbage were my clothes, my family photos, and my jewelry box, dumped onto the floor without a second thought. When I turned around, my mother-in-law, Evelyn, stood there holding a fresh set of keys with a sneer, announcing she had permanently moved in and that I would sleep in the unfinished basement. Shaking with rage, I looked at my husband, Derek, expecting him to put an end to this insanity immediately. Instead, he looked me dead in the eye and said, "My mother needs comfort. You will do as she says and obey her." That chilling betrayal broke my heart, but it also woke me up, because Derek forgot one critical detail. The house belonged entirely to me. My name is Rachel Hayes. I'm 27 years old, a freelance landscape architect, and a woman who worked tirelessly to build a life on her own terms. 2 years before I ever met my husband, Derek, I bought my dream home, a charming 4-bedroom Craftsman nestled in a quiet cul-de-sac. It was funded entirely through my personal design contracts and a modest inheritance left to me by my grandmother. The deed carried one name and one name only: mine. When Derek and I married last year, I welcomed him into my space with open arms, believing we were building a future of mutual respect and partnership. Then came his mother, Evelyn. Last Thursday, Evelyn arrived on our front porch with 2 large suitcases, claiming she was staying for a brief, 3-day weekend visit to escape routine home repairs. I welcomed her politely, set up the comfortable guest bedroom on the ground floor, and went out of my way to make her feel at home. On Monday, I had to travel out of town for a grueling 12-hour site inspection on a commercial park project. I returned home just past 8 p.m., utterly exhausted, covered in drafting dust, and wanting nothing more than a hot shower in my master suite. But as I walked up the stairs, my exhaustion turned into cold, creeping shock. Piled in the hallway outside my bedroom door like bags of discarded trash were my clothes, my cosmetic bags, my family heirlooms, and my framed university diploma. The brass lock on my master bedroom had been unscrewed and replaced with a heavy, brand-new deadbolt. Before I could even speak, the door swung open. Evelyn stood in the threshold wearing a silk robe, holding a fresh set of brass keys. "The stairs downstairs are bad for my knees, Rachel," she said with a dismissive wave. "I've taken the master suite permanently. Your things are in the hall. You can set up your sleeping bag in the basement." Stunned, I turned toward Derek, who had just walked up the stairs. "Derek, what is the meaning of this? Tell your mother to move her things back downstairs right now." Derek didn't flinch. He looked me dead in the eye, crossed his arms, and spoke with pure ice. "My mother needs comfort, Rachel. You will respect her place in this family, do as she says, and learn to obey her." I didn't cause a screaming match that night. Instead, I gathered my personal belongings from the floor, carried them down to the small guest room, and locked the door behind me. I knew that letting anger take over would only play into their hands. I needed a clear head to understand what was really happening beneath the roof I worked so hard to build. Over the next 48 hours, the atmosphere in my home turned openly hostile. Evelyn didn't simply treat the house like her new residence. She acted like an undisputed monarch. By Tuesday morning, she had hired workers to haul my custom living room furniture into the garage, replacing it with her outdated velvet armchairs. She packed away my mother's vintage porcelain sets and tossed my hand-drawn landscape sketches into the recycling bin, calling them unnecessary clutter. Every single evening, Evelyn demanded gourmet meals prepared precisely at 6:30 p.m., complaining loudly about the seasoning, the temperature, and the presentation. Whenever I attempted to set boundaries or remind her that this was my home, Derek immediately stepped in to shut me down. He scoffed at my frustrations, called me selfish, and told me that a dutiful wife would welcome the chance to serve his mother. The breaking point arrived on Wednesday evening. While I was reviewing site blueprints at the kitchen table, Derek laid a contractor's invoice beside my laptop, a $32,000 quote to completely demolish and remodel my master bathroom to Evelyn's exact specifications. "You'll need to transfer 40 grand from your commercial design savings account into our joint checking by tomorrow morning," Derek stated flatly, leaning over my shoulder with an arrogant smirk. Mom wants Italian marble, heated towel racks, and a custom walk-in shower. You have plenty saved up, and she deserves top-tier luxury in her golden years. When I looked up and asked him how he could possibly expect me to fund the destruction of my own master bathroom while being banished to a guest room, Derek's face hardened. He told me that my money was family money now, and that if I didn't cooperate, he would make sure my life in this house became completely unlivable. That was the moment the fog cleared. This was never a spontaneous family visit. It was a calculated, deliberate invasion. The next morning, as soon as Derek and Evelyn left to pick up paint swatches for the remodel, I went to work. I wasn't just a landscape architect. I was a businesswoman who handled complex legal contracts, zoning permits, and digital security. I locked the front door, pulled out my laptop, and accessed the Home Network Router's administrative portal, where every connected device's shared data and local backups were archived. What I uncovered in their communication logs made my stomach turn. A text thread between Derek and his mother dating back nearly 4 months laid out the entire conspiracy in shocking detail. Evelyn hadn't come for a brief visit because of minor repairs. She had sold her suburban condominium 3 weeks ago to settle over $200,000 in reckless private credit debt and unsecured loans. She was completely broke, homeless, and looking for an easy, cost-free retirement sanctuary. Derek had promised her my house. In a series of calculated messages, Derek instructed his mother on how to push me out of my own comfort zones. The strategy was simple: humiliate me, banish me to the basement, destroy my personal space, and create an atmosphere so intolerable that I would willingly pack my bags, move into a short-term rental, and abandon the property. Once I vacated the premises for an extended period, Derek planned to file for formal marital separation, claim full physical custody of the residence, and petition the county for an equitable title transfer under spousal abandonment laws. The final piece of evidence made my hands shake with fury. Hidden within Derek's local cloud drafts was a scanned deed alteration form. He had downloaded the state property conveyance template, attempted to forge my legal signature at the bottom, and was preparing to submit it to the county clerk's office to add his name to my sole deed before the end of the month. They weren't just terrible guests or overbearing in-laws. They were financial predators executing a calculated coup to steal the roof over my head. They thought I was a pushover who would cower in a damp basement and cry. They had no idea that every single move they made was now permanently time-stamped, backed up, and ready to be used against them in a court of law. Armed with the digital paper trail, I didn't confront them right away. Instead, at 2 o'clock that afternoon, I sat in the high-rise conference room of Marcus Vance, no relation to me, but one of the most formidable real estate and marital asset litigators in the state. I laid my original purchase deeds, the title deeds, my grandmother's inheritance records, and the time-stamped evidence of Derek's attempted forgery across his mahogany desk. Marcus reviewed the documents with a sharp, calculating smile. He confirmed what I already knew. The house was purchased entirely before marriage with non-marital funds, protected by an ironclad sole ownership deed. Derek had zero legal equity in the property, and Evelyn had zero legal standing as a resident. Under state law, she was classified strictly as an uninvited guest whose presence had become hostile. Within an hour, Marcus drafted a legally binding emergency notice to vacate against Evelyn, giving her an unconditional 72-hour deadline to remove herself and all her belongings from the premises. Simultaneously, he prepared a formal cease and desist letter addressed to Derek regarding his attempted fraudulent deed filings, backed by an immediate petition for legal separation and asset protection. To ensure our position was airtight, Marcus advised me to establish continuous legal surveillance. That very evening, while Derek and his mother were out celebrating their non-existent bathroom remodel, a licensed security technician installed discreet, high-definition cameras in all shared common areas, the living room, hallways, and kitchen, complete with the legally required notification signage posted discreetly in the foyer. Every passive-aggressive insult, every piece of my property they mishandled, and every statement of their entitlement was now recorded directly to an encrypted cloud server. When Derek and Evelyn returned that night, carrying bags of expensive home decor samples, I played the defeated wife to perfection. I stayed in the small guest bedroom, kept my head down, and spoke in quiet, cooperative tones. Seeing me quiet and submissive, their arrogance surged to an all-time high. Derek genuinely believed he had broken my spirit, while Evelyn walked through the hallway like she had already been crowned queen of the estate. They had no idea the clock was ticking. They thought Sunday was going to be the celebration of their total triumph, completely blind to the fact that the legal trap was set, the evidence was locked, and the countdown had officially begun. By Sunday afternoon, the house was filled with the loud, booming chatter of Evelyn's extended family. She had invited her sisters, 2 cousins, and her eldest nephew over for an elaborate celebration dinner to officially show off her new luxury home. They lounged in my living room, drinking my expensive vintage wine, while Evelyn gave guided tours of the master suite she had stolen from me. I spent the afternoon calmly preparing a roast dinner in the kitchen. Derek and Evelyn mistook my silence for total submission. At 6:30 p.m., all 8 family members gathered around the mahogany dining table. As soon as the main course was served, Derek tapped his wine glass with a silver fork, commanding the room's attention. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a crisp, multi-page document, and slid it across the table directly in front of my plate alongside an expensive pen. To celebrate our new family chapter, Derek announced smugly, looking around at his smiling relatives, Rachel is going to sign this post-nuptial agreement. It formally transfers half the equity and sole management rights of this house to me, while legally ensuring Mom has lifetime residency rights in the master suite. Evelyn beamed, clutching her sister's hand. It's about time you learned your place as a supportive wife, Rachel. I didn't flinch. I slowly set down my fork, smiled politely, and reached into my leather portfolio on the floor. I pulled out a thick, red-stamped manila envelope and laid its contents across the table, covering Derek's ridiculous agreement. First went the certified county property deed bearing only my name, alongside the original bank payoff receipt proving the house was purchased completely prior to our marriage. Next went the full, printed forensic transcripts of Derek's text messages with his mother detailing their scheme to force me out. And right on top, I placed the formal, state-certified emergency notice to vacate issued directly to Evelyn. Nobody is signing away anything, I said, my voice cutting through the room with absolute authority. This house is entirely mine. Derek has 0 legal ownership, and Evelyn, you are not a resident. You are an unlawful occupant who has been formally served an eviction notice with an immediate deadline to vacate the premises. The laughter died instantly. Evelyn's jaw dropped in horror, the relatives froze mid-bite, and Derek's smug smile vanished, replaced by sheer panic as he stared at his own forged signature stamped on the table. The dining room exploded into total chaos. Derek surged out of his chair, knocking his wineglass over and spilling dark red liquid across the tablecloth. You can't do this, Derek yelled, his voice cracking with desperation. I'm your husband. Everything you own is mine, and I have the right to keep my family here. I will divorce you, take this house in court, and leave you with nothing. I didn't even blink. I calmly reached back into my portfolio, pulled out a second blue folder, and slid it directly against his chest. Go right ahead, Derek, I said, looking him dead in the eye. Because these are pre-drafted divorce petitions, accompanied by a verified criminal referral for your attempted deed forgery and bank fraud. You don't own a single square inch of this property, you have no claim to marital appreciation, and you are leaving tonight. Before Derek could respond, heavy knocks rattled the front entrance. 2 uniformed county sheriff deputies stepped into the foyer alongside Marcus Vance, my attorney. Evelyn's face turned from shocked disbelief to sheer panic. She burst into dramatic, hysterical sobbing, throwing her arms into the air and begging her relatives to intervene. Officer, please. She's kicking an elderly woman out into the cold. This is elder abuse. My son lives here. The senior deputy approached the dining table, reviewed Marcus's certified court order, and looked down at Evelyn with cold professionalism. Ma'am, this property deed is registered solely under Mrs. Rachel Hayes. You have no lease agreement, no tenant status, and this court-sanctioned notice orders your immediate removal. You have 15 minutes to gather your personal belongings under our supervision, or you will be placed under arrest for criminal trespass. Evelyn's relatives, realizing they had been used as pawns in a fraudulent scheme, scrambled out of their chairs, avoiding eye contact as they hurried out the front door. Under the watchful gaze of the deputies and neighborhood spectators watching from their porches, Evelyn was forced to drag her suitcases out of my master suite. When Derek realized his legal protections were non-existent and that remaining meant facing immediate police intervention, his bravado completely collapsed. With trembling hands and empty pockets, he packed a single duffel bag and followed his sobbing mother out into the dark street, stripped of every ounce of power he thought he had. The moment the front door closed behind them, the heavy, suffocating tension that had gripped my home vanished into the night air. Within 2 hours, a licensed locksmith arrived to change every deadbolt, cylinder, and exterior key code on the property, while my home security system was upgraded with independent biometric locks. The divorce proceedings moved forward with surgical precision. Confronted with the unassailable paper trail of his secret debts, his calculated tax schemes, and the formal police report documenting his attempted fraud, Derek had zero leverage to negotiate. The family court ruled that the house remained entirely my non-marital asset, free from any division or buyout claims. Derek walked away with nothing more than his personal vehicle and the mountain of private liabilities he had tried so desperately to dump on me. Evelyn was forced to move into a tiny, rundown studio apartment on the far edge of the county, entirely dependent on modest state assistance. Over the following months, I reclaimed every corner of my home. I had the master bedroom deep cleaned, restored my grandmother's heirloom furnishings, and repainted the walls in warm, vibrant tones. I transformed the downstairs guest room into a sunlit architectural studio, filling it with drafting tables, lush indoor plants, and my framed landscape blueprints. Sitting on my back patio on a quiet Saturday morning, holding a fresh cup of coffee and listening to the breeze move through the garden I designed, I felt a deep, unshakable peace. Betrayal is a bitter pill to swallow, but it also strips away the illusions that keep you trapped in toxic relationships. Derek and his mother tried to exploit my kindness, mistake my patience for weakness, and strip me of everything I built. But in the end, truth, preparation, and self-respect will always dismantle arrogance. I didn't just reclaim my master bedroom. I reclaimed my dignity, my financial freedom, and the absolute right to live peacefully in a home of my own.